Hey, what's going on, guys? It's No Shoes, and we're back with another one. And today we're going to be reacting to A Power Governments Cannot Suppress from Vinnie Paz. This suggested by Frying Pan and Alexander Foster. So thank you both for the suggestion. Keep them coming in the comments down below. Been missing checking out some of Vinnie's music, so let me know what you guys want to see. But without any further ado, let's get right into it. Let's see what A Power Governments Cannot Suppress is all about. Let's see what Vinnie Paz got to say. Let's get it.
One of the things we might learn from history is that the government's interests are not necessarily the same as ours. In fact, are rarely the same as ours. Because if you think the government's interests are the same as yours, then you think, well, if something is going wrong, it must be that they made a mistake because they really care about us. They don't care about us.
The greatest beneficiary of
Maybe the truest intro to any rap song ever, dog. The government cares about staying in power. They do not care about making our lives as great as they possibly could be and providing with us with what we were supposed to be promised. Any of them, all of them. Let's see where this goes. I'm excited. Also, this is the third and I believe the final installment of what was started with "You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train" and the power of obedience and democracy, or whatever the middle song is called, or disobedience. I can't remember. Long names on these tracks, but let's get it.
Then you think, well, if something is going wrong, it must be that they made a mistake because they really care about us. They don't care about us.
The greatest beneficiary of Reagan years was corporations, wealthy businessmen and ministers of foreign nations. Bush promised that he would save the environment, signed the Clean Air Act and had the public buying it. 2 years after that, we seeing his imprudence. The EPA allowed tons of hazardous pollutants. Little money was allocated for the enforcement. Contaminated drinking water everywhere was dormant, but business worries over.
Beautiful. Starts off already talking about some broken promises, talking about Reaganomics and the way corporations benefited, talking about Bush and his push for, clean air, clean water, environmental regulations at some point. We're going back far. Bush was the president when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old, maybe. So it's a little hard for me to remember firsthand. Love the start. Love the way the instrumental comes in. It's got this almost solemn kind of feeling, almost this sad, melancholy type of vibe to it, a disappointment even. But the strings got a beautiful sound to them. Nice drums, just giving us a little structure. Let's see where it goes from here.
Little money was allocated for the enforcement. Contaminated drinking water everywhere was dormant, but business worries override the safety of the public. Ecological breakdowns and nobody will publish.
I think that's a great point. Business being put over the people. It's all about that money. Where's that money come from? Who's funding the next military project? Who's funding the next, whatever it is that they're doing that doesn't benefit us at all. And here's what really gets me at the end of the day, man. If the government gave any type of shit about us, income would be linked to inflation. And because that it just doesn't work the way it's going right now.
Override the safety of the public. Ecological breakdowns and nobody will publish. When Reagan got elected and he finally took to office, he spent $250,000 on his living quarters. He built the military even more and paid for it with cuts and benefits for the poor. He made 140 billion cuts in social programs. Human consequences wasn't justified to no man. He said that he still balanced the budget, but silly Leontine guaranteed that he wouldn't. The 80s were the triumph of upper class America. Ascendancy of the rich, the poor he would bury you. The gap between the rich and the poor grew dramatically.
Okay. I love these tracks. They're like history lessons, man. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say I've done all the research myself and can guarantee everything Vinnie is saying is 100% true, but I would be inclined to say at least 99% of it is true, with some, maybe not exaggeration, but with just some personal inflection added to these and his personal experience of what he's seen in his life, flavoring these larger events.
He said that he still balanced the budget. Vasily Leontiev guaranteed that he wouldn't. The 80s were the triumph of upper class America. Ascendancy of the rich, the poor, he would bury you. The gap between the rich and the poor grew dramatically. Black families were hit the hardest, be emphatically. Lack of resources and racial discrimination. Broken homes, drug addiction, incarceration. Instead of trying to help the people out of this position, politicians call for the building of more prisons. Reagan lied about Iran, lied to Nicaragua, lied about the Soviets, and lied about the Contras. He sold arms to...
Thanks, man. Touching on some great points here, obviously with the cutting of social programs and just all of the misled things that the government has done to us. The overarching theme, at least in America, is the suffering of people of color, whether, black, Spanish, even Asian people have had their own hard time during different phases of America. And, obviously everybody's still having their own hard time. And it just kind of evolves and changes and they shift how they say certain things. And, redlining or whatever it is that's going on. There's always a new name and a new brand for how the government wants to mistreat people and push these more marginalized groups to the side. It's terrible, man.
Nicaragua, lied about the Soviets and lied about the Contras. He sold arms to Iran and all of it was cited, but plausible denial is why he ain't get indicted. Ali North stood trial, the jury found him guilty, but he ain't do no time because the motherfucker's filthy. Reagan sent Marines into a crazy situation. 200 died in Lebanon because it was dangerous. After that, he sent forces into Grenada. Congress was notified but not consulted. That's a horror. What good are shows of force if you never use it? That's the way the Reagan mind worked and he abused it. Why do people die in countries we invaded? So we can make it clear that violence was understated. Reagan's raid on Libya.
I want to bring that back just a little bit.
Worked and he abused it. Why do people die in countries we invaded? So we can make it clear the violence was understated. Reagan's raid on Libya.
So we could make it clear the violence was understated. And he's talking about all the different wars or conflicts and everything that America's been so kind as to stick its nose into over the years, as if we are some beacon of what it means to be a great society, while, most of us here hate it. I'm not going to come on here and tell you like, oh, I'm moving to Canada if this and that doesn't happen. People like to cry and cry and cry and do all that shit and they never do anything. But it's all just suspicious, man. Oh, they definitely got weapons of mass destruction over there. We got to go take care of that, guys. How do we know? What, are we supposed to just believe you after MK Ultra? Everything else you done to us, it's crazy. And also this artwork is fantastic. The White House exploding, looks like nukes or at least missiles of some sort in the palm of his hand. I imagine this is supposed to represent one of the presidents. I couldn't tell you which one based off appearance here. And then the skull mushroom cloud is a sick touch as well. But let's keep it going.
Worked and he abused it. Why do people die in countries we invaded? So we can make it clear that violence was understated. Reagan's raid on Libya, that was terrorism. Bombs fell on a crowded city, 100 victims. The Cold War, let me relay you the facts. The foreign policy just delayed the collapse. The U.S. policy motivated by fear to justify the suppression of independent care. The military budget was $280 billion. Colin Powell said he want to scare the world civilians. In order to boost his popularity with voters, Bush went...
That's a horrible sentiment. He wants to scare the world's civilians. Sounds like a evil, like a super villain, if you ask me. And also, great delivery from Vinny so far. A little bit slow, but it's perfect for delivering such complex topics, going through such controversial topics as well, to have that very clear and understandable delivery. So that way the message can actually be heard and digested rather than just listened to. Because I always think about, a lot of times, especially with, this brain dead mainstream music that's all about women, money, cars, and drugs, which having music that's a little bit about any of those is fine, but when it's all about that and only that, that's when I start to take an issue. Point being is a lot of people listen to music, they don't actually hear it. They don't actually they don't actually hear what people are saying. They ain't listening for that.
Was 280 billion. Colin Powell said he wanna scare the world civilians. In order to boost his popularity with voters, Bush went to war with Iraq and hid the motives. He abandoned sanctions and said it was for protection. He only chose war because the presidential elections. Who believed that we would liberate Kuwait when we
Okay, yeah, and then the politics of how do people get reelected into office? You know? What is it? Is it do they start a war so they can hit that incumbent slot and come back in and continue their their reign of terror, even talking about congressmen or mayors or so many other public officials that also get voted in. What do? The election cycle comes around, they go, "Oh, I got to start making people happy." Or something, or I gotta do something to make people believe in me. And then once they elected, oh, they don't care. It's about the power. It's not about you.
protection. He only chose war because the presidential elections. Who believed that we would liberate Kuwait when we invaded other countries every single week? You think that they could build a nuclear bomb? They was 10 years away from having nuclear bombs. Less than half of us favored military action. No blood for oil was the citizens' reaction. Officials lied about small bombs. American reporters were kept from the war's harm. Clinton got in and appointed people of color, but he abandoned them when they started working together.
Some great changes coming to the instrumental on this track as well. You know, the tracks in this little trilogy Vinny has are all long. This one might be the longest at just 2 seconds under 6 minutes. Um but and they're just straight verses too, which is also insane that he's just going this long. But then when you have these nice changes with the melody and everything, it provides that extra intrigue, that extra evolution, and allows Vinny a little bit of an easier time where his voice doesn't have to do so much work to keep the song interesting because the beat is helping him out in that regard.
Officials lied about small bombs. American reporters were kept from the war's harm. Clinton got in and appointed people of color, but he abandoned them when they started working together. He spoke of a new government for a new century. Invoked Dr. King's name, compared their philosophy. Recalled Dr. King's dream of racial equality, but put more blacks in prison than anybody in history. Continued the military budget at Cold War levels. It doesn't matter the party, homie, they all devils. Approved the FBI attack on Koresh.
Hard, man. And then those strings coming in after taking a little bit of break for that piano. Just beautiful way to shift that melody, change that mood a little bit, the way it draws it out. And I've noticed that the bass line, very, very sparse on this track, at least where I've really been able to catch it. It's maybe like one note per like the first downbeat of each measure or something like that. It's coming in very far apart.
Of racial equality, but put more blacks in prison than anybody in history. Continued the military budget at Cold War levels. It doesn't matter the party, homie, they all devils. Approved the FBI attack on Koresh. Fire swept through the whole building, burning flesh. His crime bill got a lot of attention, but it emphasized punishment, not prevention. Persuaded voters he was tough on crime, but tougher is.
And I feel like that's one of the biggest issues, man, is this. I did research on this years ago for like an English class I took at community college. And I can't say I remember my research perfectly, but I think the large conclusion about the American justice system and especially the American prison system is that it criminalizes people rather than rehabilitates them and helps them to come back to, a more functional member of society, which I hate saying that because a functional member of society just means you're a good drone that helps the government do its job by obeying their rules and feeding into their taxes and da di da di da di da di da, right? But at the core of it, right, there are some crimes that are just objectively bad to commit, whether it's murder or burglary or whatever. And, maybe there's some Robin Hoods out there, and I ain't gonna yell at you because we got a lot of rich people who could do with a little less, if you feel me. But regardless, the criminalizing of someone by putting that into putting someone who may have committed a very small non-violent crime into that system, and then changing the perspective with which they see themselves, and also just focusing on punishing people rather than helping them in a way that can also prevent the circumstances that might lead to someone living a life of crime or what have you.
A lot of attention, but it emphasized punishment, not prevention. Persuade the voters he was tough on crime, but tougher is dumber when you give him double the time. Clinton removed welfare benefits.
And I think that's a reference to the crack laws, where from, the time per sentencing from coke to crack is essentially just doubled, put through the roof. They're like, oh, they cooked that on a stove and added baking soda. It's so much worse now. It's crazy. It's crazy, man.
Double the time. Clinton removed welfare benefits from immigrants. Legal or illegal, most of y'all don't know the difference. Who did the free trade agreement really preserve? Why the number of prisoners doubled when Clinton served? Domination of the media was there to vaccinate. If God intended us to vote, he would have gave us candidates. Bush versus Gore, that was your decision. Both
I want to bring that back just a little bit.
Media was there to vaccinate. If God intended us to vote, he would have gave us candidates. Bush versus Gore, that was your decision. Both support the death penalty and growth of prisons. Nader ran too, but the media denying it. He emphasized education, healthcare, environment. Half the country didn't even vote, and that's a sign. Appealing to class warfare that no one's buying. Gore received hundreds of thousands or more votes. Proof the electoral process is a joke. Bush took
Facts, bro. Facts. Local elections might work. They might actually mean something, but what is stopping them from making up the outcome of a presidential election, right? We vote anonymously, essentially. Nobody knows who voted for what unless, you're talking to your friends later in that day. How big of a sample size is that? 10 people, 15 maybe, depending if you got a lot of friends. But like, what would really stop them from just deciding who wins and then showing us whatever we want to see on the news, making it seem like it's a close race? I'm not saying this is exactly what they do, but what would stop them? Based on everything else we've seen the government do, why shouldn't we believe that that is at least possible? It's crazy, man.
Prove the electoral process is a joke. Bush took office and pushed tax cuts for the wealthy. Opposed environmental regulations for the money. 9 months into his presidency, 9/11 immediately declared a war on terrorism. He said that they were Saudi, said it was the Taliban. Then he ordered the bombing of Afghanistan. You kill our civilians, we kill y'all civilians. How the fuck that makes sense when we all civilians? Wartime presidents do wartime shit. That's
Yeah, almost like y'all kill off civilians, we kill off civilians. Kind of touching on that like eye for an eye type of feeling, but then you say how that makes sense when we're all civilians. And maybe that's a larger reference to, even the people that are in our militaries are just civilians that have now been trained to wear camo and make their beds and swim in muddy water and shoot M16s, or, I'm not sure exactly where that reference goes, but I love the sentiment here, man. You can feel the realness in his voice. This is one of those things that, I could see Vinny, like, it keeps him up at night, just like laying there thinking about all this shit, got it rolling around in his head, just frustrated, pissed off at the world. looking around, seeing such an imperfect place being manipulated by such an imperfect institution. It's just, it could feel like the whole sky is falling down on your head.
Since when we all civilians, wartime presidents do wartime shit. That's why wartime presidents can suck my dick. There were minority voices that were criticizing war. You can't match violence, but violence should be the law. We stationed troops in Saudi on the holiest of shrines. Military aid for occupying Palestine. Killing innocent Arabs to come back to haunt us. And stupid motherfuckers sit and wonder why they bomb us.
If you're like me,
Damn, hold up. Bring that back just a second.
The shrines, military aid for occupying Palestine, killing innocent Arabs to come back to haunt us, and stupid motherfuckers sit and wonder why they bomb us.
Yep. You know, it's funny how these how it's called an act of terror until the US flies to a random country and does it to them, and then it's justice, isn't it? You know, maybe we've been right in some cases. Maybe we have. But it's hard for me to believe that we have been in all cases. Regardless, let's finish this out.
Come back to haunt us, and stupid motherfuckers sit and wonder why they bomb us.
if you're like me, you have a lot of friends who are depressed. A lot of friends who go around very gloomy, think the world is coming to an end. You can understand people feeling depressed, you can understand people feeling desperate, because the truth is, we're faced with evil. There's an enormous number of people who care about the world and about the country, want to do something about it, and those numbers are going to grow, so long as people persist and don't give up.
Beautiful. Nice little bit of reverb on the end there. Wonderful mix and master on the track. All the layers are present. They're nice and, separate enough that nothing's getting mixed together. Vinny's voice is clear throughout the whole thing. All those different changes in the melody really give that track some direction in the energy. And just a beautiful message, man. One, just bring issues to light and actually having a conversation about them. And then that sample capping off the track saying, don't give up hope. Keep trying, keep caring, keep wanting to make a change. The more of us that are out there, the more of a change we can make. And that's a beautiful thing. So that was A Power Governments Cannot Suppress from Vinnie Paz. And I think the power that he's talking about there is the power of the people to look for change and to push for change, even when the odds may not be in our favor. But I really enjoyed that. Thank you again to Alexander Foster and Frying Pan for the suggestion. Keep them coming in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit that bell if you want to see more videos like this. Much love to everybody in the No Shoes Gang, and I will see you all next time.